To us, magic sounds like this extraordinary thing, pulling a rabbit out of the hat, coming out of nowhere. But it's here, it's real. And the more that we are open to the unseen, to the energies of this world, to abundance and manifesting, to calling in and growing, the more we'll be able to call magic into our lives. Join me as I share stories, wisdom, and curiosity around connecting with your higher frequency, tapping into the synchronicities of the universe, and opening up to the unseen possibilities that this world has to offer. I am your host, Dayna Faye, and this is the Ordinary Magic Podcast. Hey everyone, it's Dayna on Ordinary Magic. Today I have Zach Ketterhagen, the transformational integration coach, addiction and recovery specialist, a psychedelic integration coach that helps impact leaders, spiritual seekers, and light workers unlock their unique fulfillment journey and forge their unique path to their highest and true self. For the past 15 plus years, Zach has been blessed to have studied and practiced with world-renowned leaders of yoga, meditation, Tantra, total well-being, business systems integration, psycho-spiritual transformation, psychedelic integration, and more. You guys, Zach is a manifesting generator, so he likes to get into a lot of things. Zach has taught yoga and meditation for over 15 years and is a student of the Sri Vidya Himalayan tradition. He coaches clients all over the U.S. and lives in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin with his wife and 2 sons. Welcome to the podcast, Zach.
Thank you, Dayna. I'm really excited to connect and to share.
Thanks for being on. And for the listeners, Zach, he is a 6'2" sacral manifesting generator in human design. So MGs, they are multi-passionate doers. They like to do a lot of things. You can tell that from the intro of Zach. And when I reached out to Zach to be on the podcast today, I had said, hey, I know you do a lot of different things. Are there any topics that are big on your heart right now? And he sent me like 6 different options in true MG form. Zach, I am so excited today to talk about the yogic anatomy of the mind and holistic spiritual mindset, because a lot of people, we've learned about mindset in the self-help world. I mean, that's very common, but let's take it another layer deeper and actually learn about the holistic spiritual mindset. Is that something that you've been on a journey with for quite some time?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, addiction, pain is a big motivator, searching for deeper answers. And I was struggling after college, moved into a yoga community, and now I think with a lot of gratitude on that pain addiction. Of course, when I was in it, it wasn't so lovely. But looking back, it's just strange how the mystery of life unfolds. And ever since then, I've never really looked back. You know, I've always been a student, a seeker, dense at times, light at times, a quick learner, a tough learner at times, but just been on the spiritual path in earnest for the past 20 years or so. And the foundation of really how I help clients and how I see the world in this holistic mindset is through my spiritual practice, yoga and Tantra. But it's really important as folks are working with, let's say, therapists or coaches, to really understand that it's not about your coach's spiritual path or your therapist's spiritual path or what they believe or what I believe. Really helping people unfold their true beliefs, their true spirituality, how they see the holistic mind. And I know we'll get into that later, but it's really important to practice neutrality. And I truly believe that in diving deeply into any spiritual path, if you truly dive deeply into it with open heart, you start to see universal principles, universal teachings, and then you can really help people get to the core of how they're approaching their parts, how they're approaching their higher self.
You are so right. The more, because I'm a bit of a seeker myself, the more I dive into different spiritual tools, the more I see a common thread between all of them.
I think it's helpful to paint a picture. So when I first got introduced to the mind, it was from a very masculine, disembodied approach. And I think from yoga's standpoint, reading the Yoga Sutras and Bhagavad Gita and all those foundational teachings, it can leave out the heart. It can leave out the embodiment. Of course, yoga believes, fully that we are embodied body beings and the mind and body are completely interconnected. But oftentimes us as seekers, we like to be in our head. We like to be in the mind. We like, to spit out words of intellect, to hypnotize our our viewers and to impress the audience or whatnot, or to impress our connections or friends. But the holistic mind is really in our heart. It's really, how can we connect our mind and heart, and how can we connect our mind and body? And of course, the central aspect of our body is our heart. My teachers would say we're not body alone, we're not mind alone, we are breath. And they would draw these three circles. Body is right here on the left, mind is right here on the right, and then the breath is in between. And the amazing thing is, the breath wasn't a smaller circle. The breath was just as vital as the body and mind. It was, and still is, the bridge. And that's what I think, us in modern society, we've forgotten about. And the breath really signifies a lens into our energetic body. And there's so many people, I know you're probably discovering this too, Dayna, like there's so many people waking up. There's so many people interested in spirituality, human design, gene keys, etc., investigating their total well-being and mindset. And so the breath is this beautiful lens from the yogic and tantric tradition into our energetic body, into those subtler aspects, and really into our advanced nervous system, so we can self-regulate, so that we can really, choose to go on a spiritual journey and align with our higher self. So just taking a step back, we're not body alone, we are not mind alone, we are breath. And around that is our source wisdom, who we are. And people come at source wisdom from many different things, God, universe, etc. And I encourage, my clients, I encourage everyone to use their own words and really define that for themselves. Who are you? And a lot of times I'll use the word higher self for a true self or higher self. And that really is a nice couch to understand that this higher self, that source wisdom, is all around us, is us, and we can access it.
So what you're saying, and I want to clarify one thing, when you talk about the heart, are you talking about the physical heart or the energetic space around the heart?
So that's an awesome question. So I don't have a simple answer for that. I think both. So we could talk physical, and we could have a very scientific podcast, and I would not be the podcaster for that. I would not be the guest for that. And we can have a very energetic conversation about the heart, and we can have an emotional conversation about the heart. We can have a very mental, intellectual conversation about the heart. And so I think that really bodes nicely in this holistic mindset conversation, that it really depends, all those levels are encompassed, and it really depends upon which level we're talking about. And all are true, and all are deep work. So I don't ever mean to, in my work, as let's say, spiritual as I am, as much as I devote to energetics and emotionality, I never want to diminish our physicality, our physical heart, because the body is a temple. In the holistic mindset, the body is not a stepping stone, not en route to this spiritual mind. It is as important. We're not body alone, we're not mind alone. It is as important, and there is immense treasures locked inside of our body, that the whole idea is bringing our mind back home to the physical body, to really rejoice in our higher self, and that there is these treasures right underneath our nose.
I love that explanation. Thank you. And how can people really start to connect to their higher self? I think that was a great example right there, was to visualize actually those three circles and go, okay, I'm everything. And to expand your consciousness past just this physical body that you can literally touch and feel. But to, I like to put my arms out and say, okay, my energy field goes in a full oval around me right now. Can I feel that? Why don't I just try? What are kind of some practices that you like to do?
Well, so before we get into practices, I'd love to just, because this totally accelerated, just the framework alone. And so I want to explain the framework, and then we could, of the higher self, of lower self, and then we could get into a little bit more technical, a little bit more advanced, like yogic anatomy of the mind, if that's helpful. But first, it's just the idea that there is a true self within and without. And, I'm going to use true self, higher self, and it's all interchangeable. And so there is this higher self. There is a reason why our soul came to embody in this life, let's say. And it is our great urgency and our great gift to find our soul's purpose, to unfold. And that really is our higher self. And our higher self is constantly witnessing us. It is constantly there. It is like in meditation, this beautiful concept is that we are not the meditators. Our higher self or our Ishtadeva, our personal divinity, is meditating. And we, our lower self, connected to our higher self, are simply there. And so just understanding that this higher self concept, that it's not necessarily, it can be a God outside, but it is our source. It is where we came from. It is who we are. And it's really all about alignment. What are we aligning with? We're aligning with our lower self. And it's really important to stress that lower does not mean worse. Lower does not mean like higher self is not better. Lower is our embodiment. And thank goodness we are embodied. Thank goodness we can feel pain, because then we can be motivated to change our transformational journey so that we can listen to our feedback from our soul, etc. Our lower self really signifies our body, mind, and breath, our vehicles to embody our consciousness. And consciousness is another framework for higher self. So just understanding there is a higher self and there's a lower self. How can we align, like totally radically kind of transform my understanding of my previous pain in my life, my previous addiction history, and things like that, and how to really help a person through their transformational journey. My favorite practices in that framework are really like you mentioned in my bio. I'm a student in the Sri Vedic tradition, and that's really yoga and Tantra. So Sri Vedic is a tantric tradition, and the core practice of yoga and Tantra is meditation. So union of our higher self and lower self, union of mind and body through a quieting practice, focusing of our body, breath, mind in meditation. So that is my jam. That is really it. Other than that, 2 years ago, I discovered the Gene Keys.
Yes.
And like that is, of course, a contemplative practice. And so it's like, the art of contemplation. So really dove into that. And of course, contemplation was part of my path with yoga and Tantra, but it just got taken up 100 notches with the Gene Keys. And with that practice of meditation, or with a practice of breath work, or harnessing the power of body, breath, and mind, I truly believe that you strengthen those tools of consciousness. And as soon as you turn to human design, as soon as you turn to the Gene Keys, or as soon as you turn to that question of, as an example, I'm 30, I haven't done much in this life, I'm drinking a lot, etc., I want more of life. And you turn to that transformational question, and you drop that in a full heart. You drop that in a focused mind. That contemplative question just blossoms into a seeker's food. So contemplation is a huge practice, and I include that in my coaching and support of clients, because it goes to the heart of a key practice that we can bring to align with our higher self.
Yeah, and it's so doable, attainable for anybody. I mean, the concept of contemplation is just really taking something you want to contemplate, whether that's, I'm 30 years old. What am I doing in this life? A big question like that, or just a simple one of how do I want to spend my 1 hour of free time every day? Something like that. And let it float around you throughout your life while you're in meditation, while you're at the grocery store, while you're driving, and not force the answers to come, but almost let the frequency of the answers to come into your aura. I hope that doesn't sound too woo-woo. Listeners, I can feel them rolling their eyes, but like it is so fun to put a question out there and say, I'm going to contemplate this, and just kind of like let it cook for a little bit until it's ready.
And that was like, so the big thing that Richard Rudd, the author, creator of the Gene Keys, like what he really showed me is what you're expressing. Like I used to approach contemplation with, I need, that grasping energy. I need to find the answer. I need it now. But just dropping the contemplative question in your heart and having it kind of dance around has totally changed and transformed. Like you don't need an answer. All you do is need to keep the mind here, keep the mind, body, and breath here. And so that it's amazing watching the mind sneak away, watching the body getting distracted. And so just keeping the body. And one helpful visual that's been really helpful, just, I know one of the ideas I shared with you was, hey, we could explore masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
And just polar, they're just, sides of consciousness. right? Like yin and yang. And so, I was bringing a lot of masculine energy to my contemplation. And if I'm being honest, a lot of immature masculine to my contemplation. I need the answer now. I need to take action now, versus just dropping the mind in my kind of spiritual heart and embracing that power. And what are you dropping? You're dropping a question into your body and just holding space. And that's very feminine. And so the balance of masculine and feminine really. And when I get an answer, okay, now it's time to act, and now I have more confidence, etc.
I love that. And that's when you can then get into the masculine more and do the doing. But first you were in that feminine energy of just, I'm going to receive this and then I can go. That's so cool. So as you're talking, I was curious, during your yogic studies and when you started to really tune into your higher self, was there ever an aha moment that you made sense of why you dealt with addiction in the past?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. I think you could tell me a lot about that with my 6-2 lines, my manifesting generator.
We're in this 3D world, right? And a lot of people are stuck in the race of get up, get my kids to school, go to the 9 to 5, get home. I'm stressed out. My body kind of thrives off the energy of stress. So I'm just going to keep doing it, drink a coffee, go, post this on social media, all this stuff. And they're listening to you and going, he's clearly doing spiritual practices every day. I can't do that. We need to just give them the first step and also the result of how important this is to connect with your higher self, because your higher self wants to connect with you so much. And yes, I'll explain. So Zach is a 6-2 profile in human design. So his 6th line, it is actually a 3 line in his first 30 years of life. And 3 lines are all about trial and error. They're all about experimenting in order to learn. So it's totally correct for Zach and all 3 lines and 6 lines to really try a lot of things. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to learn from a book. They want to just go try. And even when they fail, that is a win, because as a 6 line, now between the age of 30 and 50, which this is the category Zach's in right now, is he's retreating almost to the top of the roof, what human design says. And he's integrating everything that he did and learned in his first 30 years. And that takes about 20 years of integration as he also observes society as well as a whole. So he's integrating his lessons, he's observing society. After 50 years old, he comes off the roof back into society as the role model, which is what the 6th line is called. And it's the new age role model where you've been through so much. It feels like you've lived many lives in one life, that you are just so living 100% authentically yourself, because that's what a 6 line needs to do at that age. And by doing that, people observe you and they look to you as a role model. It's a very cool profile line.
That's beautiful, Dana, because I really feel that. I mean, I had not a dramatic, but an awakening at 28. It was just kind of night and day. Around 28 years old, just had this urgency to integrate. And this whole, past 10 years or so has been that of integration. You asked the question about, why? Why do you think I discovered addiction or had so many trials? And I think you explained it well. It was maybe a part of my DNA, maybe a part of my story. I do believe so. Addiction, it's interesting, like flipping addiction. Addiction is a coping mechanism. It's a survival technique and supportive mechanism. And so at one point, drinking, gambling, that anxiety, that depression was serving me to a point. It was guiding me to move towards, hey, this isn't that great, move towards your higher self. After a time, it became a habit, it became addiction. I was really a fraction of myself, of my true potential. I was a mess after college. And I'm partly sharing this with your viewers and you to inspire your viewers. I was not meditating every day like I'm doing now, or I was not a coach, etc. Having an understanding of my transformational journey. I truly believe I live these trials and errors to become a better, more whole human being, to become a better coach. I often think that, like, oh, I made that mistake, to become a better coach and help more people. Looking back as I integrate more, as I look back on my healing journey, I had so much anxiety. I had so much fear in my younger years. and it was corrupted. There was like a lot of data corruption from my mind. And so from that standpoint, addiction was a numbing mechanism. There's a lot of people waking up
Yeah.
right now. So, and in that awakening, it's light energy. It can very quickly be seen as anxiety, as fear. It can very quickly go to our subconscious. And so just not knowing what to do with all that energy. And I do believe, like in my healing journey, like looking back at like 5, 6, or 7, my body had so much power, had so much energy moving through it, that I started shutting down my heart. My ego started coming online. I started not understanding what to do with the struggle of emotionality. And I truly believe, like now looking back, I went through these layers of pain, these layers of addiction, to then unfold, and I continue to unfold to really help people. That is my mission. I don't know why I like to work behind the scenes in helping leaders and helping impact humans live their best lives. I think I know why. I think I magnify and facilitate many people. That's kind of my talent. That's my skill set. And if I can activate a lot of leaders, that's really an activation of my major impact in this world. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's where we went.
It does. And I just remembered that your conscious sun sign in human design is gate 50. And it is a tribal energy gate. And it's all about supporting the greater well-being of the community. And with that gate, you have this intuitive awareness. It's connected to the spleen center. You have this intuitive awareness of what is corrupt, unjust, or unnecessary for the community. And you want to help the community kind of uphold the structures that are valuable and helping them. And so, I mean, it all matches exactly what you're saying.
One beautiful thing that I'm picking up from what you're sharing and the gene keys is just this idea of hierarchy in society. It's embedded in everywhere. Our family systems, our school systems, our electoral systems, you name it, our corporate structure. And really, I had this idea of hierarchy growing up. Just like I would lose myself to the teacher. I would lose myself to the hierarchical structures. And you'd put yourself in a role. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I think a lot of people share that kind of, let's say,
Conditioning.
Limited. Yeah, condition. Yeah, thank you. That's a perfect word.
Yeah.
Limited quality. Like we often put ourselves in a box, and it's around this hierarchical structure. And when you destroy, or when you start to destroy the hierarchical structures, and I'm not talking about anarchy, I'm just talking about just a mindset of like, you are just as important as the person next to you. You are on different transformational journeys. Let's find your gifts. Let's tap into your unique holistic mindset. From there, each individual has unique gifts to offer the group. And that, like, dismantling the hierarchical conditioning can really transform and accelerate people's path forward. And I know it has mine. So
that's great advice. And you're saying you can just do that mentally first in your head.
Do that mentally. Understand that our whole conditioning, our whole society is under hierarchical structures. And it's so unseen. It's so unconscious. Oh, this is my boss. She is more valuable than I am. I am not as smart as they are. They might have more experience. Great, but you have your own unique gifts. Tap into those own unique gifts. It's not about hierarchy. It's about what are your gifts to bring to the world. Because guess what? Your boss can't do it alone. Your mom, your son, whichever relationship we're talking about, they can't do it alone. We need to tap into other people's gifts and your gifts. And that starts to break down the hierarchical thinking.
Yeah. And if you're hearing this and you're wondering, well, I don't know what my gifts are, ask your loved ones around you, first of all. Just ask people around you who love you. They will tell you what your natural gifts are, your essences that you give off. Or we have these modern tools now that are just getting people there so much quicker, like human design and gene keys, which can really help paint the picture of what your essence is that you're meant to do in every facet of your life, not just your work, but just everything that you do.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, that's so cool. So let's bring it back to the higher self and the lower self, and let's summarize. So your higher self, it's your body, your mind, your soul, it's your whole energetic being, and you're tapping into that whole frequency. Your lower self, you said, is your embodiment. So body, mind, and breath, correct?
Yeah, so let's just get into that. That's absolutely correct. Higher self really is the essence of who we are. We talk about it. Source wisdom. Some people like the word God, don't like the word God. Whatever word you use, higher self really signifies that, our essence. It's our soul's path. Lower self are all the tools that we need through our embodiment to really align with our soul's path, our soul's purpose, our higher self, why we came into this world. And so lower self is not worse than the higher self. Higher self is not better. We need both. And it's really all about alignment. And so lower self can be our body, can be our schedule, can be how we view time, can be our typical mindset, negative, positive, how we interact with relationship, etc. And the lower self also really encompasses, from the lens of addiction and recovery, there are 1,000 faces of addiction and recovery. Like, I like to take a step back. Some people, it's unfortunate what we did in our society, creating a disease around addiction. When we're really talking about the human mind and the nature of the mind, the nature of the mind is to create habits, is to conserve energy. We bring in a whole bunch of habits into this world, aka samskaras, previous impressions. And so we're trained to really be creatures of habit. When does a habit become an addiction or not? Because, the many faces of addiction can be food, can be sex, the foundation of who we are. And so just like there's 1,000 faces of addiction in our lower self, there is 1,000 parts of who we are. And the past couple of years, diving into internal family systems and parts work, and just understanding that we have 1,000, I'm just using 1,000, but 1,000,000 infinite personalities within us. And what parts are really dominating us? What parts are holding us back? We might have a fear part or a protective part that really is blocking us from our true nature, from our higher self, and really investigating those parts, getting close to those parts to bring them in alignment.
Hey, magical beings, are you ready to connect deeply with your soul and uncover your true purpose and path? It's Dayna from Ordinary Magic, and I have 2 special offerings just for you. With my human design readings, you'll discover your unique blueprint and learn how to live in harmony with your true nature. And through my soul alignment sessions, we will connect to your higher self and your spirit team to gain profound clarity and deeper connection to your soul's essence. So whether you're facing life's challenges or simply need an energetic tune-up, book your session today and let's embark on this magical journey together. Visit my website at daynafaye.com, and now stay tuned for more soul nourishing content.
And so there are many different ways to see the higher self and lower self, but real quick, the higher self, our essence, our soul's purpose, our lower self, all these tools, all these many facets of our embodied nature.
So do you recommend people dive into their lower self first and really try to connect with those unhealthy habits that they've created before tuning into their higher self, or can they do all of it all at the same time?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. So when I'm coaching a client for the first time, it's no secret that I'm looking for how to build as much momentum as possible. That really is a not so secret ingredient to growth and the transformative process. So you can dive into all of it. Some people, manifesting generators, are going to dive into, lots of different things, right? Some people are meant to not dive into other things. But the thing is, usually momentum is created by a couple key habits, by a couple key activities. And so it's really figuring out those leverage points, those high growth leverage points. What's going to get you somewhere with the least amount of work? It could be a habit of meditation. Not usually, actually. It could be a habit of diet. It could be a habit of not beating yourself up and changing your mental mindset. And then vice versa, some people are, as they're awakening, they're getting in touch with an inner voice. They're getting in touch with their intuition. And that's a high leveraged activity, to really see how your intuitive voice is coming through you, to really see how that can lead you to then a key momentum step. And so it really depends. Of course, it's a personal journey. It really depends, but usually just identifying those just one or two. It's never 10, honestly. It's one or two key habits to move you more into momentum. So then you can be faster, stronger, brighter. And then your decision making changes, and it just continues to propel you forward. Doesn't mean you're not making mistakes. Doesn't mean you're not, taking some detours, but you continue to find that momentum.
Yeah, so no barrier to entry. I mean, you can really it's not a one size fits all. It's really depends on the person.
Love that. I love that. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question because I don't know if I can answer it myself, but what does it feel like for you when you connect to your higher self? Like, what does your higher self feel like?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. So this whole year has been like, I come up with a theme of the year, and this year has been opening my heart. And my higher self feels open-hearted. It feels very present. It doesn't feel like I have to think of when I'm talking to you, Dayna, it doesn't feel like I have to think of the next answer and I'm not listening to you, let's say, or someone else in front of me. And really, like, when I am in the present moment, in my embodied experience, my mind is very strong, and our minds can be very strong. And so my mind is out there, just coming up with ideas or blocking ideas with fear. And when my mind really drips in that nectar of my open heart, of my feelings, of what's true in this moment, of an openness, a sprinkling throughout the body, let's say, that is an expression of my higher self. Other expressions of my higher self, when I'm deep in meditation, it happens, infrequently, frequently, who knows, some good meditations, some bad meditations or so, but it's all good. But when deep in meditation, there is this timelessness. There is this very quieting security. I'm also doing this ritualistic mantric practice around the Sri Sukta, which is like 16 mantras that are in the Rig Veda called the Sri Sukta. And it's really asking Shri, Mother Divine, in the Tantric tradition, Mother Divine, to come to us, to embody her wisdom, and I to her. It's just this really dance of coming into the divine, coming closer to the divine, and divine coming closer to us through ritual, through meditation, through embodiment, through open-heartedness. And it's this light feeling of joy, this interest, this excitement in the human experience, we could say. Like interest, excitement kind of leads to this deeper gratitude, this deeper timelessness. So I don't know if I did that justice, but a few different ways.
Yeah, I think you did. I think you explained it really well. I definitely feel the same way when I sit in meditation, at least, and really start feeling that my higher self come forward. It is a very open-hearted, motherly, mature, but yet chill, like feeling, essence, energy. There isn't any how we're in my usual world of my mind being like, you should do this and do that and da 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 da. Like it's a very just like moment, of just my higher self essence, and it just feels good to bask in it, like laying in the sun. Like it just feels really good to sit in my whole energy of my higher self and just know that like my higher self holds all the wisdom, and maybe I'll receive some wisdom that day in meditation and oftentimes not. And it may come through, in a conversation later or a different synchronicity. And that's the beauty of it, is you can't see what you're going to get out of the time that you put into meditation or connecting to your higher self in nature or just talking out loud to your higher self. You can't see what you're going to get out of that, but you do get a lot out of it. And you just have to have faith in that for a little bit until you have the evidence to prove it.
I love it. One thing I'm doing now, or what's walking in my life now, is I'm doing a 40-day kind of intense ritualistic mantric practice, but also, changing up my diet and eating clean. And really, how can I bring the joy without the necessary dependency of sugar, of sacred medicines, of whatever? How can this be an unconditional feeling? And I'm not there yet, but it's a lovely practice. And so that's something that I'm contemplating now, because these synchronicity feelings happen. Times in deep meditation happen. But how can we I wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Okay, how can I switch out of that and just be like, oh, today is a gift, and not Pollyanna, not, I'm not ignoring my painful experiences or waking up on the wrong side of the bed and saying, oh, I'm just going to change my mindset. No, we don't want to do that, but really from a place of depth, from a place of, if we can get there without and I'm not saying, go off sugar and go off sacred medicines or go off all the fun, but it's been a wonderful practice for me just to see how can I bring joy that's unconditional.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm excited to hear how your 40 days go and your journey afterwards. And I relate to you in regards to one area for myself personally that I know I still have, I guess you could call it addiction or a bad habit in, is in order to actually rest, I need to feel heavy. And so I eat extra food when my body's calling me to stop. And so that's another example of knowing where I'm numbing out and still having not really, I'm contemplating it and I'm not pressuring myself because I know it's been a habit for 34 years. Just wanted to share that we all have something that we're working on and trying to contemplate through. So thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. Okay, so we talked about the higher self and the lower self. Can you bring in the yogic anatomy of the mind? I'm super fascinated to hear what that's about.
Sure, yeah, this is great. The yogic anatomy of the mind just breaks it down a little deeper. The mind is so complex, honestly, and so a lot of times we simplify it. And so the yogic anatomy of the mind pulls out the major functions of the mind. And so at first, it's just helpful just to acknowledge, and I don't often think we acknowledge this, so let's just pause. There is an internal world and there is an external world. And the internal world is as important, honestly, if not more important than the external world, because our internal reality impacts everything we do in the external world. So there is that boundary. There is that barrier. In the end, collective consciousness, we could talk about that, how we're all interconnected. But in this reality, there is my mind, there is your mind. And so it's just helpful there's an internal and there's an external world. How we interact with this internal and external world is through what yoga would call the manas mind or the conscious mind. And we interact with the world through the 5 cognitive senses: seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing, touching. And yoga goes a step further. We interact with the world with 5 active senses. And so those are, we talk, speech, grasping, we use our hands, locomotion, we use our feet, procreation, and elimination. And so those are the 5 cognitive senses, 5 active senses. And those are how we intake the information in the mind. And then you could say the 11th sense or the 6th sense, if you're just using the 5 cognitive senses, is the mind itself. And so the manas is like this lens into how we perceive the world. And so this lens is fed by 2 different things, okay? From the lower side, let's say, it's fed by the unconscious mind. It's fed by, the yogic word is chitta. And the unconscious mind is the storehouse of subtle impressions. And so I don't know if your listeners are familiar with the concept of samskaras, but samskaras are nothing more than previous past subtle impressions. And so we could talk bringing in subtle impressions, samskaras from our previous lives, or samskaras from the childhood development process. Everything we do, everything we see, smell, everything we talk to, everything we grasp, it's stored in this unconscious mind. In yogic tantric cosmology, the understanding is that we bring this mind into our current life from previous life. So there's lots of unconscious tendencies, unconscious samskaras. These unconscious tendencies are feeding the lens of the mind and how we interact with the world. The other way the lens and our perception of the mind is fed is this term in yoga that's called buddhi. And it's buddhi. So buddhi is the knower within us. And it's literally pure perception. There's a pure perceiver within us that knows. And we could call this a buddhi within us, intuition. We could call this the knower. It goes by many names. The problem in many cases within our complex and fast-paced society is that the manas mind, or the mind that is interacting with the world through our five senses, five cognitive senses and five active senses, is cloudy. You can look at it as like a mirror or a window. We get so flustered. We have, thousands of notifications coming at us, information overload. And so we can't hear this voice of pure perception. This knower within us can't come through us because this conscious mind is so convoluted. Not to mention the unconscious mind is continuing to bring up inner child work, continuing to bring up parts of ourselves that are hidden to us, continuing to bring up fear. And of course, in our unconscious mind, there's good stuff too. And we can create and store good stuff and previous love, etc. But the work really of yoga and the pinnacle practice of yoga and union is meditation. So really in meditation, we're really cleaning the glass, cleaning the window of how we interact with our internal and external world, how we see ourselves. Can we see ourselves without preconceived notions, without attachment to samskaras, without these strong colorings? They're literally called colorings of thought. And so around these parts of us is the ego. And yoga and Tantra really understands the ego as a boundary, as a not necessarily good or bad, but it's a boundary and thus a vehicle to pursue mental clarity, to pursue our higher self. And then around these four parts of mind is our higher self. And so that really, in a nutshell, a quick and dirty nutshell overview, is the yogic anatomy in the mind. I think it helps parse out just what are these different roles. Yes, we're interacting with the world, and sometimes we can't even give ourselves a second or a minute to take a deep breath. As soon as we take a deep breath, let's say in meditation, we have all these unconscious tendencies coming up to the surface of our conscious mind. Oh, we should have sent an email. Oh, I wish I wouldn't have sent that to my boss. Oh gosh, I got to take the kids to school. Whatever those thoughts might be, and it bombards our conscious mind. And this is the nature of the mind. The true gold of the yogic anatomy of the mind is truly understanding the nature of the mind. And the nature of the mind is to think, to produce thoughts. We're not trying to turn our thoughts off or ignore our thoughts. We're really trying to understand our unconscious nature and ultimately trying to understand this pure perception, this knower within us.
And that really, this whole conversation makes me feel even more how incredibly important meditation is.
Yeah, so what I like to think about with meditation is your lower tools of consciousness. We came into this world embodied, body, breath, mind. Every meditation, you are strengthening, you are polishing the manas mind, you are polishing how you perceive yourself. And then when you drop a contemplative question in that pure perception, you are able to see further than your previous self. You're able to see further than someone else. And it's not that you're better, it's not that you're further along, it's that you can see what's right in alignment for your unique path. And meditation is one of those pinnacle ancient practices that a lot of ancient systems go to, right? So it's just like, if you haven't gotten into meditation and quote unquote, you suck at meditation, or meditation is hard for me, I literally built a 21-day meditation challenge for people who said that meditation wasn't for them. Honestly, like, following a system in meditation is really important. And once you follow a system, you can understand where you progress, because the nature of the mind is just so complex. The nature of whatever mind you're talking about, higher self, lower self, yogic anatomy of the mind, we can get lost very quickly. What fascinates me is, like, I was a project manager and product manager in my corporate life. And I bring those skill sets into my coaching spirituality, which is why I love working with entrepreneurs, because I can talk the talk and whatnot and help them with their transformational journey. But we give so much credit to this external, like a project. Is it on budget? Where are we? This external drive to know exactly where we are. Goals, write them down, set priorities. I'm all for that. For some reason, when we close our eyes, we turn away all internal systems. A lot of us. We need to treat our meditation practice as important as our project management system, as important actually as human design or gene keys. It's a pretty advanced system. Meditation can be just as advanced.
Yeah, at least in where I'm at in my journey right now, it feels even more important. I mean, it is like brushing your teeth in the morning. And yeah, I don't do it every morning if I had an 8 a.m. meeting and, I was busy and all that, but that's great. I think people should definitely check out your 21-day journey or challenge for meditating, especially like you said. If you think you can't meditate, that's false. There are so many ways to meditate. So my biggest advice is find the way that works for you right now. Don't try to do 20 minutes in silence right off the bat. If it's a 3-minute guided meditation, you can find one of those and it can do wonders. And if you do that multiple times a day until you can graduate to a 5-minute one, that's better than trying it once and then not doing it for another year.
That's beautiful. Couldn't have said it better myself, honestly.
Yeah, amazing. Zach, this has been such an incredible conversation. I'm actually excited to go hang out with my higher self again after this conversation. I'm such a nerd.
Oh, we all know you've been hanging with your higher self, by the way.
Yes. I loved what you said before about seekers being up in their heads probably a little too much, because I definitely relate to that. And that's why grounding meditations are so fantastic. So thank you so much for bringing your expertise on today. What are you working on right now? Where can people find you if they want to work with you?
So you can find me on ZachKetterhagen.com. I'm growing my coaching practice, loving individual coaching. I also have started a number of community hub conversations. One of my gifts is facilitation. And so I have an addiction recovery circle, I have a sacred men's circle, I have an advanced Vishoka meditation training. So again, manifesting generator, doing lots of things.
And are those community hubs in person or online?
They are in person right now. So if you're local to Sun Prairie, Madison, plug in, reach out. Zach Ketterhagen on Facebook, Insta, and LinkedIn. So just reach out and let's love to have a conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Zach.
Thank you.
Ordinary Magic is a Lit Path Studios production, produced by Jamie Gale and Dayna Faye. Music is by Shane Ivers. Until next time, I wish you many powerful moments of ordinary magic.